Kolchak is in trouble as usual. Little did he know there is no end to this tunnel. It just goes and goes, kind of like Bottomless Canyon outside a dog patch.
This is one story I may not get to file in person, so I'll have to talk fast, because it's after me. Claustrophobia has long been a part of the human experience, from the Cro-Magnon all the way up to Freud. So if you ever happen to find yourself underground, and I mean deep underground, don't linger in the shadows.
Unless you're playing a Splinter Cell game, then shadows are your friends.
April 20th, 3:30 p.m. Dr. James Verheiden, 3 PhDs in geology and well-known seismic expert, was poking around in an undeveloped tunnel of the underground Marymount Archive mine complex. Verheiden knew instantly he had found something extraordinary. So did his tool packer, Howard Kemper.
Those things look an awful lot like eggs. He tells Kemper to set up some lights. When Kemper handed him a Bud Light, Dr. Verheiden got a great idea for an ad campaign. He picks the thing up and carries it to their cart, then tells Kemper to gather the lights. He used them for all of about 45 seconds. I think he just likes to make his subordinate work.
Howard Kemper was a good worker. He did what he was told. At least that's what people would say about him at his funeral.
Howard should have demanded hazard pay, or made the professor wait for him.
10 a.m., one day after the death of Howard Kemper. In the same underground complex, only this time Sector M. Business as usual, all except for journeyman electrician Larry Coogan. Coogan had complained to his friends that he didn't like working so far underground. He said it felt like working a tomb. Today he would learn how right he was.
We see two ongoing features of Kolchak the Night Stalker. Many parts are too dark to see what's happening, and they never figure out to run. Next day, we have another police briefing by another police official.
Detective in charge of the case was Lieutenant Irene Lamont. She was a fast riser, a one-woman phenomenon of the Chicago PD. Her detractors said Irene's success was owed only to her looks and her alluring femininity. Her supporters were usually too moonstruck to say anything.
Lieutenant Lamont, why are you holding back details on this death?
Lieutenant? Oh, Brian, why so formal?
Well, Irene, it's just the department's attitude is hard to understand on this.
I doubt her looks are the only reason for her meteoric rise, but she does know how to use them to her advantage. These guys are tripping over their tongues, and she's milking it for all it's worth. Carl, on the other hand, is one of the earliest identifiable asexuals. He thinks all that thing is good for is relieving his bladder, and he can't figure out why guys are so consumed with the desire to pee in front of a woman.
I haven't answered the man's question yet, Lieutenant.
Just what is the police department's involvement with routine industrial accidents, anyway?
Routine investigation, Ed.
Everything's routine around here, Lieutenant. You're getting in a rut.
Oh, not me, Carl. No, speak for yourself. Hey, listen, fellas, my desk is piled with work in there. If I don't get to it, they're gonna boot me back to traffic. Now, would you really want that to happen?
Oh, hate to see you back in uniform, if that's what you mean, Irene.
Thanks, Ed.
Do these guys really think she's going to give either of them a tumble? Carl tries to explain what she's doing, and the fact is, he's right. They don't care. Party.
All right, Lieutenant. Let's talk turkey. Now,
Carl, I like you. I really do. I mean, I like your style. I like your savoir-faire. I like your directness, the way you take over a situation. I even like the way you dress.
She still hasn't figured out that it doesn't work on him. He takes the Carter Nash approach.
I try to think of girls as sort of round men.
why don't you elucidate the rumor that I've heard about you not allowing the relatives to identify the bodies?
There you go. You see, that's how rumors get started. Now, in fact, we had identified the bodies from the ID they were carrying. We didn't forbid the relatives from seeing the bodies. It's just that they were, well, they were so badly mangled that we thought we would, well, save them all that misery and anguish.
Yeah.
If they were that bad, it makes sense. There are those who don't get that. I once knew a couple of people who were driving along, minding their own business one day when a fully loaded cement truck tipped over and crushed their car like an aluminum can. Neither of them ever knew what hit them, and pardon me for this, but rescuers had to take them both out a part at a time. Their minister was not the brightest bulb in the chandelier, and he insisted he was going to view them. The funeral director refused and may have threatened to call the police to stop him. That part's a little vague. But the man told him, "You do not want to see how they are now. Remember them the way they were, not like this." It's the same deal here, except for one thing.
Why haven't you told us anything about the way they were killed or what the accidents were? What?
Carl, when you're dealing with the Marymount Archive Corporation, well, there are very special problems. I mean, they store corporate records. They even store records for the federal government. I mean, now we are just following ordinary security precautions.
The touching, the leaning in close, calling him by name. I'm sure she used her mouthwash and perfume this morning, and she still doesn't understand that he's immune to that stuff.
Oh. Well, what ordinary security precautions? What? Whose?
Carl, I really am terribly busy, and I can't go into it now. I have an awful lot of things to do.
Yeah.
And when she realizes it's not going to work, she retreats into a cop-out. There's one thing Carl is extremely good at, and that's sussing out what's really going on with these cops and cutting through the jargon. Now, he tends to beat them over the head with it to the point where he short-circuits his own investigation, but that's a separate issue.
Right. You're going to be late for the autopsy report on the electrician, right?
Right.
Right.
Carl!
Forget it, Irene. Your charms don't affect him, and he's way quicker on the draw than you are. I suggest you play ball with him. And she doesn't know it, but he intends to be at that autopsy, too. She thinks it could be him, but she's not sure. And he won't turn toward her enough for her to decide. But even Kolchak wouldn't go this far, would he?
Just like the first man. Deep puncture marks like teeth.
Teeth? Did you say teeth?
Yes, teeth. And not dog's teeth either. These teeth marks are not those of a mammal, but of a reptile.
This man was bitten to death by a crocodile?
He didn't say that, but Kolchak has heard enough and quietly excuses himself. Next stop, the Marymount Archive Company. He'll go in disguise, which means he takes his hat off.
Preservation through perpetuity was the company motto.
Excuse me. Can I help you, sir?
Well, I certainly hope so. Yes, my company's interested in leasing storage space here. How soon could I get an estimate? I've got to catch the 5 o'clock plane for Winnipeg.
Well, we can see to it that you catch that big bird with plenty of time to spare.
Splendid.
I'm Jack Flaherty. I'm the vice president and general sales manager.
I hope Tom Bosley doesn't need any introduction. Carl wants to see the actual vaults, which are 2 miles underground. Jack says, no need. I can get you an estimate now, and you can see the facility another time. That won't work for Carl.
Well, there is no other time, unfortunately, you see. It doesn't matter, though. You got to break eggs in order to make an omelet. Come on, Jack.
The other thing Carl is good at is talking so fast it makes you do this. The elevator ride down to 10,000 feet is an experience to remember, but it doesn't take very long. At the bottom, Jack is extolling the virtues of their absolutely secure facility.
Well, Mr. Flaherty, how do you like it, huh?
Like what, Chapman?
Oh, you haven't answered your phone messages lately, huh? Well, when you do, you'll find there's a calling from our union liaison man. Look, me and my men ain't gonna work down this place the way things have been going on unless we get extra compensation.
That's fine, Chapman, but I don't think that this is the time or the place to discuss union management relations.
Yeah, that's fine. Wait till you hear our package of demands.
He really needed that to happen in front of a potential client. As management, he'll probably say the hard hat guys just don't understand the intricacies of running a place like this. They do understand that 2 of their number are dead under mysterious circumstances, and nobody wants to be number 3. Jack doesn't want to acknowledge that, especially in front of a paying customer, which means he doesn't have to worry about it because Carl is anything but. Except Jack doesn't know that yet.
I heard you had a little trouble down here.
Oh, yes, very unfortunate. However, I'm not at liberty to discuss it, you know, insurance regulations.
Yeah, but I hear a man was killed. I mean, mauled badly.
Yes, well, in an operation of this sort, Carl, one has to expect 1 or 2 industrial accidents.
Yes, of course, certainly.
How does one get mauled by a reptile by accident? And was it the person's accident or the reptile's?
Yeah, what's down there, hmm?
Oh, just some more data. You see, some of our clients desire optimum security.
Oh, your client's a tall fellow with a tall white hat and stars and stripes and a white beard named Sam?
Boy, you are astute, Carl.
So are you, Jack.
For now, Sammy's stuff has nothing to do with why he's here. He really wants to see where the killings happen, but he can't come out and tell Jack that. Their next stop is what Jack calls the nerve center of the place.
Asking for it till I'm blue in the face. It's gonna be Utah all over again. Did I ever tell you what happened to me in Utah?
Only a few times.
Well, he just doesn't understand.
Yeah, oh, this is it. Oh, yeah.
Well, speak of the devil and he shall appear. Just when do I get my locks changed on my office and storeroom?
Now, I put the working order in. I'm doing everything I can.
That means it's out of his hands. Dr. Verheiden needs to talk to the maintenance people, but those manual laborers are beneath him. He goes straight to the top, whether it makes sense to do so or not.
Now, don't you think you're just being a little oversensitive?
Paranoid?
I said oversensitive.
Paranoid? Is that what you're trying to say? There are no paranoids in the Soviet Union. Do you know why? Because everybody there is being watched and plotted against. Only the insane man feels secure, and it's the same thing in here.
Some time ago, he found some really cool rocks in Utah. He worked his fingers off, collecting them and cataloging them, and finally boxed them up and shipped them to a museum. Except another geologist got wind of his find, found the boxes, and changed Verheiden's name to his own. He got all the credit, and Verheiden got sore fingers. He still hasn't gotten over it.
Yes. Lieutenant Lamont? Well, I've been walking the facility with a new customer. Put her on. Yes, Lieutenant, this is Jack Flaherty. Well, yes, he is. As a matter of fact, he's right here with...
Now Jack knows who he is. All anybody has to do is find him.
Hi there, mind if I sit down? Well, just how are your union dealings coming along?
Slow is how they're coming along. The only thing that happens fast around here are accidents. Bang, bang.
Yeah.
Two of them just like that.
What do you think caused those accidents?
You ain't no buyer.
You're right. You're absolutely right. I'm down here undercover.
Well, you're too late. I had a lot to tell you police yesterday, but nobody ever listens to me.
I'm not a cop. Do I look like a cop?
Then who are you? Come on.
My name's Carl Kolchak. I'm an insurance investigator.
Maybe he should put his hat on. That'll make him look more like a sleazy insurance guy. It also might keep Jack from recognizing him. Our man tells him where the men were killed and how to get there. Unlike your average golf cart, those don't have a roof because it never rains down here. It never rains down here, but there are plenty of other hazards. Whatever it is, I doubt it's here to introduce itself. Good thing he got pictures. If he shows those to Tony, he might actually get to print one of his crazy stories. If he does an Austin Powers and gets stuck, I am gonna laugh so hard.
Okay, Carl. Come on, come on.
There's something out there.
Yeah, well, it's good thing you've been getting some exercise, Carl, because there isn't much room in the slammer.
Are you listening to me? I said there's something out there.
Uh-huh, well, you're under arrest, Dr. Kolchak.
Were you under arrest for what?
Impersonating a doctor. I could have had you outside the morgue.
Last I heard, just putting on the coat and calling yourself a doctor wasn't against the law. If he had done something, she might have him for practicing medicine without a license, but all he did was talk.
And then there's trespassing in a security area.
Are you listening to? What are you doing to my camera? Please give me those pictures. I got pictures of it.
This is a classified area. There are no pictures allowed.
Excuse me, but she is a lousy cop. Right now, she's more irate than Irene, and all her fury is focused on Carl embarrassing her. That's what counts right now, and taking his film without asking what's on it is terrible police work. I'm starting to think Carl was right after all. She got here on her looks and seductive moves. Kathy Brown had plenty of both. She usually played characters that took advantage of that. At this time, she had been Mrs. Darren McGavin for 5 years, and they'd stay married until her death in 2003. I can't help wondering how much fun she had slapping the cuffs on her husband and telling him he's under arrest.
Will you listen to me, please?
I thought there was something suspicious about him right from the first. So I figured if I went along and gave him enough rope, he'd hang himself.
Oh, you did you?
Yes.
Will you listen to me, please?
We are listening, Carl.
All right. Now, this is going to be very hard to believe. It's going to sound silly, but there is some kind of a strange reptilian lizard monster out there. I mean, none of us is safe.
Carl, will you just come quietly?
If I'm Kolchak, I say, not until you explain why I would make up a crazy story like that instead of something believable. She doesn't care. Making her look bad is the unforgivable sin. One of her goons grabs him and literally drags him out. As I said, a lousy cop.
Mr. Flaherty, I am terribly sorry. You won't be bothered by Kolchak anymore.
Not only is she a lousy cop, she's a lousy prophet. Or else she doesn't know him very well.
Just a second. I'll take charge of this man. Merely have one of your men sign a waiver. Won't take any of your time at all.
Don't touch the goods.
He's in my custody. I keep him.
Now, he trespassed in a security area. That's my jurisdiction.
I already had him on a previous count. Now, let's not argue.
Very well. It's your responsibility.
Frank Marth is very familiar to the channel. And honestly, the more he acts tough like this guy, the more he makes me laugh.
Listen, I got some pictures in here like you...
Oh, Carl! I don't want to hear anything more about that giant newt.
How does he have pictures? Didn't the lieutenant take his film? And as a newsman, it's ridiculous that Tony won't even consider photos. If you won't believe your idiot reporter, at least believe the visual evidence, which, oddly enough, requires pointing your eyes at it and focusing them.
I want you to keep away from the authorities in Merrimont.
Rip the lid off of this lizard creature affair, and I'm gonna find out who those guys in the water department really are, and you, stop talking with your mouth full.
Don't tell me what to do with my mouth. And what guys are you talking about? In what water department?
Stay tuned. You'll hear the next installment. Yeah, hello, is Arnie Weissmore there?
Arnie Weissmore? Arnie Weissmore, isn't he in prison?
No, of course not. He's out on parole.
Arnie is your basic hustler who will do almost anything for a buck. Carl says, I need you to deliver a package. Something viewers may or may not have noticed is Updike isn't in this episode. Jack Greenidge had a contract to be in all the episodes, but he had a chance to get in on the ground floor of a new series right at this time, and he asked to be released from the last one. The network agreed, and he left Kolchak behind and went on to his next thing.
They make lousy pets. Crocodiles. Not only won't they fetch your slippers, but they'll eat your feet.
Arnie thinks he's a comedian.
You know, there's not one of these things stands upright like a man. Not one.
Well, of course not. If God had wanted crocodiles to stand upright, he'd have given them alligator shoes. Oh, come on, Kolchak. These are the jokes.
That's one word for them. I'm sure Carl and I can both think of lots more. What's in the package Kolchak wants delivered?
Look, that last problem with the Mexican border would have never happened if somebody would have remembered to soundproof the hearse properly and to put on lipstick. His wig was crooked, too. I mean, if you're gonna run parrots into the country, you gotta lay out some cash for decent soundproofing.
Parrots?
I'll never forget that feeling when that third voice in the back started squawking, Buenos dias, buenos dias, wah!
Yep, he is the package. He's determined to get back in and get the story.
All right, come on. You just make sure you get me there, right?
Don't worry.
What's that?
You are now a precision instrument.
What? Instruments of chaos need to be precise, too. He has a book about reptiles with him and a flashlight to look at it with, but he can't find anything that resembles what he saw. The delivery goes off without a hitch, and he's back down in the tunnels.
Officer, all we found up in Sector R were large agate specimens. Howard was fine when I left. I saw nothing unusual.
Well, let's just hear it one more time. You're the last person to see Kemper alive.
The doctor is lying. He's not telling her about those blue things he found because he's sure somebody will come along and undercut him again. Lying to police to protect your ego isn't a good thing to do, Doctor. And Kolchak, for one, doesn't believe him. He's off to the doctor's lab to check things out for himself.
What are you doing in my office?
Gee, these are the strangest looking rocks I've ever seen.
Now put that down.
Yeah, what are they?
It's an alloy I've been working with. Now, put it down.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, you sure this is not the agate that you and Howard Kemper found?
No. I'll give you 30 seconds to leave.
I don't think he's afraid of you, Doctor. He really wants to know what those things are and why Verheiden is so hesitant to tell him.
Tell me, what do you think you've got in here that's so important that somebody want to steal it? That? Can't be that. See, it's funny, these look like eggshells. I mean, do these look like eggs to you?
No.
That's funny, you know? What do you know about reptiles?
Nothing. They're not in my field. Put that down.
Yeah, well, they're not in mine either, but I know one when I saw one, and I saw one, a huge one here. Did you find these in Sector R?
Now, I am tired of your questions. I have no desire to discuss reptiles with you or anything else, and I'll have you arrested again.
Yeah, sure.
He isn't just paranoid about someone stealing his work. He's scared of something, and it has to do with those blue things he's so upset about.
One more question, Doc, if you don't... Get out.
Now, do you know anything about reptiles, Doctor? By now, the doctor doesn't know anything about anything. As Carl suspected, those guys in the water department outfits are military. I suppose she thinks he did all this.
You want me to open this, huh?
Uh-huh.
You know, if all the film that I've shot that's been confiscated by the cops relate end to end, I'd have enough film to shoot War and Peace, including a travelogue and a cartoon.
Again, what were you and Verheiden talking about?
Again? Rocks.
Carl, if he had any information that would shed light on this, you better start belching it up, or I guarantee you a graduate degree in license plate making down at the State Farm.
He already tried to tell her, and she threw him in jail. Why should he cooperate with her now? She burned that bridge when she decided to be a hard-nose. She's determined to be in the driver's seat, but she doesn't have the map that tells where she's going. He does. And he's seen how she drives, so he'd rather do it himself.
Lieutenant Lamont, if you don't mind. Relax, Mr. Kolchak, relax. Cigarette?
No, thanks. No, I don't smoke. I read the Surgeon General's report.
Look, I don't know how long I can hold off Miss Lamont. You know, she wants to bust you bad. And I don't know why you won't cooperate.
As long as he's been a reporter, do they really think he doesn't know good cop, bad cop when he sees it? By 1974, it was already a television cliche. That's all he has to offer.
Open up with me.
Open up, huh? Yeah, well, you see, it's little things, like how you kept a lid on all this mess, General.
Colonel.
Colonel! You'll make General.
And the colonel has no idea what Kolchak just did to him. He got him to admit on the record that the military is involved in this and they're trying to keep it quiet. Too many of these people try to match wits with him but come to the contest unarmed.
Yeah, you see, you're thinking maybe that there's more of these creatures around, huh? That maybe they'll get into your secret silos, your underground missile and SAC bases down there. Maybe they have already, huh? Well, did you ever think that they might be down there in the subways, too, and underground tunnels, down in underground garages? Did you ever think about that? I mean, when are you going to warn the general public about this?
When we feel the time is right.
And who is we?
Hey!
Whoever we is, I think he wants to be part of it. Knowing the military mind, the colonel wants to enslave these creatures and find a way to weaponize them. But they're already weaponized, motivated, and on the move. He just doesn't like where they're heading, especially right now.
He's gone! Check the hall!
Check the halls for great big lizards. Fa la 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 la. Kolchak is going back to the professor's lab to play a hunch. There's nothing there, so he wanders around until he finds a storage room. There's no question, that's a nest and those are eggs. The critter is after its babies. Verheiden apparently broke one of them and the shell pieces were on his desk. Carl knows what has to be done. Why is he leaving that egg behind? Lizardman is probably going to want all of them. He'll leave it there in what is probably the most frustrating sequence in the episode. He read in that book that a lot of reptiles are photophobic, and this one seems to fall into that category, so he makes himself a torch while he's there. He hops on the cart and starts running for Sector R. Why doesn't he just leave the nest on the cart, run and hide somewhere, and let the creature take it back to Sector R? You should know the answer by now. Runtime. This is where we came in at the beginning. He's telling the story into his tape recorder. If he doesn't make it, maybe someone will find the tape and know what happened.
I only hope it'll take this nest and go. If it won't, then good luck.
After a brief encounter that scares the bejabbers out of him, that's what it does. It smashed all the electric lights, but couldn't figure out what to do with Kolchak's torch, and that was enough to make it back off. That one egg is still sitting back there in the storage room, but I guess it's a good thing for Kolchak that this thing can't count.
I know what's going to happen now. As far as the authorities are concerned, the events of April 20th and 21st will never have occurred. They're going to tell me that if I ever breathe a word of this, they're going to break me like a straw man.
As if he hasn't heard that a dozen times before, and he's still standing. He's faced police, mercenaries, soldiers, and monsters, and he's still walking around free. God really does place special protection on idiots.
Now, what about the Sentry? Will its eggs hatch in the warm, dark, dank dampness of its nesting place? Who knows? Maybe the government will find the nest, maybe they won't. We'll probably never know. But if you're in a subway or a pedestrian tunnel underneath a ballpark and you think you hear something moving in the walls, it may not be your imagination. Take my advice. Don't walk. Run to the nearest exit.
What became of Irene? Doesn't matter. I think it would have been a nice touch if she and Carl talked things over and went on a date, but that's just because they were really married and I think it'd be cute. Instead, we end on that generic line. I can see several reasons the show didn't catch on. First, it really is formulaic. Every episode follows the same pattern. Carl is telling a story that gets harrowing as we go along. He takes care of the big bad and never gets any respect for it. It's cookie cutter. We see this happen a lot with a series based on a movie. The average movie wraps things up nice and tight and there's nowhere else to go. Suddenly you have to find somewhere to go. We saw it with Blue Thunder and we've seen it here. When you establish a character or scenario as solidly as the movies did with Carl Kolchak, where do you take him? You're painted into a corner and you end up getting repetitive, like we did. Second, as I've pointed out many times, Carl is not a likable protagonist. He's not a good person, he's not a pleasant person, he's not a helpful person, he's the opposite of all those things. You can only take an anti-hero so far, and we took him way beyond where we should have. Now, if he had been a Carter Nash type who bungles his way through and somehow comes out smelling like a rose, I think the show might have had more of a chance. A hero that you can't stand isn't going to have much staying power. Third, audiences in 1974 just weren't ready for this stuff. It was way too dark, figuratively and literally, and people I've talked to found it depressing rather than exciting. Had it come along around the time of the X-Files, it probably would still be running, but it was a little too ahead of its time. The final nail in the show's coffin was the fact that Darren McGavin hated the show and didn't want to do it anymore. He declined to renew his contract for another season, and that was the end of that. Even with all that, the show's influence can't be minimized. Among dozens of other shows, the creators of The X-Files said in so many words that Kolchak directly influenced what they made. That's a feather in anybody's cap. Even though it had such a short run, people in and out of the television industry will remember it for a long, long time. Thanks for joining me on this excursion. I'm not sure what's coming next, but there will be something. Until then, remember to like the video, subscribe if you haven't already, and click the bell so you know what's new. Thank you again for watching, and I'll see you later. Immune does that. As management, look more like a slow down. Those don't have a roof. Yeah, I'm sorry. Okay, don't lose the line. I need you to deliver. I think it would have been. All right, come on, slow down. All right, it was a little too ahead. Come on, David, read your words.